Hello, hello. I'm gonna let things sync up. Sometimes YouTube starts later than Twitch, and sometimes the other way around. And I would like everybody to be involved. Make sure I've got chat. Hope everybody's having a good day. Huh. It says this is offline. Is that a lie? It was a lie. It is not offline. All right. So, let me check volume. Let's see here. Probably need to update titles too. All right. So how does this sound? Nothing? Oh, there's a pretty big delay. It sounds like it's a little bit quiet. Let me see if I can help fix that. Oh man, my mic's already maxed out. I guess I'm gonna have to just lean in. All right. So, titles. Sorry. Let everybody know what we're up to in here. I think, what's it called? Yep. There we go. All right, so let's see here. Let's catch everybody up. If you caught any of my last stream, you might know that, sorry, hold on. There we go. Yeah, I built this SDK for just to wrap an API that the MMAI has public. I used Taskmaster, and it was a little bit, there was definitely a learning curve, but what's the takeaway really? After figuring out how to get everything configured, I liked how it helped keep me on task kind of as much as the AI agent, and it really helped track like feature development and whatnot. I think if instead of having it in tasks, and I said this during the stream too, but like basically instead of having these text files here, if I could have it integrate with a proper project management system, I think it'd be really cool. And I obviously it's not far off. I mean, at this point, I am pretty tempted to either write a PR for the Taskmaster repo that adds some of that, like add a way, like the different configurable ways to connect to different project spaces. Anyways, so I did end up getting this all working. I had to take some of it offline because I was eating dinner, and then I just really didn't feel stream ready. But I mean, I guess I can show there's an API key in there. Anyhow, or actually what I can show is, where is it? Because not only did I get it working, but I got it published. Here we go. So it is on NPM. You can install it. If we go to the README, it'll show you. Yep, here's the installation instructions. Also, I set up the doc site. Using Docusaurus, and that was pretty cool. Took a little bit to figure out. I'd never used it before, but once I did figure it out, like not all of this. So getting started, these pages, installation, and your first note, which is like a guide to, actually implementing. All of this stuff is dynamically generated. So as long as I keep up on the README and keep up on, that is the doc site. Let's go to the source. Appropriate tsdoc notation here. It will build that right here. Yeah. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. Also, I got the GitHub publishing workflow set up with PNPM. That was a little bit weird. There's a lot of really good documentation on how to do this with NPM, but the PNPM documentation is very sparse. But this did end up working. Some things that need to be taken into consideration, especially test. Where was the other thing? There was something else in here that I had to set up a specific way to work. Maybe that was it. Anyways, because it does run, like pre-publish, it runs lint and test and everything, and it needs to be able to run that in here in this environment. Anyhow, so that's all pretty cool. Now, as I wrapped this up, I came across this because I was going to set up a MCP server in here. And then MCP server's primary function was basically just to provide documentation for other LLMs. And I found this. So GitMCP, let's use actually this repo. Sorry. There we go. Let's use this one. So we're going to go to, this one being the SDK that I developed last time we were in here. So if we send this to MCP, it's going to give me this. All right. Now, let's go ahead and PNPM PNPM DLX, create T3 app at latest. Oops. Okay. Let's call this GitMCP example. All right, we're going to use TypeScript, Tailwind, ESTRPC, no auth, no database. App router is fine. ESLint is good. I still want to try out Biome. I haven't done that yet. Maybe that's next video sort of thing. Yes, and install and use that. All right, so I'm getting the boilerplate all set up here for a basic project. So cd, actually, we will just cursor get MCP example. There we go. Okay, because this is where things get cool. So let's see here. It is a .cursor folder, and in here we're gonna have a mcp.json. So this is, you can go into cursor settings and go to MCP. I'm not gonna click on it because my Brave Search global MCP rule has a visible API key in there, but this is just a project-specific version of the same thing. So I can pop over to here and grab our, yeah, I mean, it actually even shows you. So it's got for cursor, Cloud Desktop, Windsurf, VS Code, Klein, Highlight AI, all these things as specific installation or setup instructions to work with. Anyhow, so I'm going to pop this over here, do it like that. Oh, man. Sorry, I'm just realizing I'm going to get rid of the globals because I want to be able to show you how do I do that? Sorry, I want to show the tools that it comes out of box with so we understand. But I don't want to show that, and I don't want to just delete it because it's something that I actually use. I know what I do. I know what I do. All right. I know what I can do. I can actually grab all of this. Sorry, I'm off screen on purpose, but oops. Full screen. Here we go. All right. So having added the mcp.json, actually I need to do one more thing before I lose the contents of my clipboard. I'm just going to drop it here. There we go. Okay. I don't know if that's going to be a big... Oh, there we go. Just didn't want any errors there getting in the way. So let's enable this. There we go. All right. So as you can see, the tools fetch MemAI SDK documentation, search the documentation, search the SDK code, and fetch generic URL content, which is neat, by the way. If you don't have an MCP, I mean, Cursor already has copy paste of the URLs and stuff, but this is something an agent can use. Anyhow, so if I ask it to build me something, let's see here, using the MemAI document AI SDK documentation, and this is not what we want. Let's get into server. So if you're not familiar with Great T3 app, the TRPC endpoints are, or the TRPC routers are in server/API. It's routed there through Next API endpoints, and it provides a lovely type-safe interface between your backend and front end. Not super worried about that right now because what we are going to do is hijack the create function here. And sorry, I'm just thinking about the way this boilerplate is set up because I chose not to use a database, so it's just right here. Anyways, it's not important. All right, so using the MemAI SDK documentation, add a sorry, how do I phrase this? Add a create note API call. I hope that doesn't confuse it. Using maybe not using, referencing. Yeah, okay, anyhow. So referencing the MemAI SDK documentation, add a create note API call to post in the create procedure so that MemAI stores the content of the post. There we go. Use API key. Can set it when you're done. All right. There we go. So it's going to search the MemAI documentation. And that's going. There we go. No, wait. It's being indexed. That's interesting. I wonder if there's something I have to do to index. Whoa, what is all that? That's interesting. Okay, so as a fallback, it just grabbed the documentation extracted from the docs folder. Wow, yeah. Okay, so it still worked. I'll have to look into the search stuff. Huh. I mean, so it needs to install it for us, which I think it's missing the point. Okay, all right. Well, we're getting closer. Yep. So it's going to install the SDK. That's interesting. Might have to set up Tailwind to run some build scripts correctly. Let's restart the TS server because it installed that and maybe it doesn't recognize it yet. Okay, so it is, I mean, it is referenced correctly there. Why is this an error though? I'm gonna try closing and opening real quick. Sometimes things don't quite jive during, yeah, so the error is not exported correctly, which it really should be, right? Oh wait, no, okay, there we go. Wait, what? There we go. Let's try fixing that. It's imported more correctly. It's just not going to use it. Sure. I'm okay with that for now. Because the whole point here is let us npm dev. And did I have what? I do have another screen open. Here we go. All right, yes. So let me grab that off screen. I think I have it over here. Actually don't, but I have it somewhere else. Glad that didn't just have, you know, environment open. All right, where is it? It's here. I'm going to go ahead and add it to, not there, not there. Sorry, I'm gonna pull this off screen. We're just gonna add that to the environment as the memAI API key. Sorry, I can at least show you before so I'm just memAI API key equals, and then I'm gonna throw it in there. All right. Sorry. Here we go. Okay. So that's been added, and let's go back to here. Is it logging anything out after I do that? It is. Okay, so it should show successfully sent post. There we go. I don't know what that hallucination was, but it's fine. It's going to add the post ID here. And it's going to use the name as the input. So when I come back over to here we go. All right, so I should be able to say some sort of memAI note and submit. And we come back over here. We wait. Actually, I need to do this with a curl post and see like how long it takes, because, or how long it takes usually, because I feel like for some reason this one's been taking a long time. Did it do it? Yeah, there we go. Sorry, successfully sent post 2 to memAI. And so if I, where is notes? Sorry. Bring this over here, and here it is, some sort of memAI note. Anyways, so really this isn't about the memAI or the memAI SDK. This is about gitmcp.io. This is a really cool tool. I definitely need to figure out, curious about this too, about the indexing. Wait, what does change from github.com to github.io? Oh, or github.io to gitmcp.io. Gotcha. Which is what it's doing when I click this button. It's going to gitmcp.io instead of github.com. But the rest of that URL is the same. And really, you could just be doing this if you knew what was happening behind the scenes. Anyhow, what else do we want to show here? I mean, so we did the search. It searched the documentation. What were the other commands? I did also notice this, that the stream disconnects pretty regularly. I don't know if it'll do an automatic retry or not. Let's see here. So the search didn't work particularly well. I mean, it worked in that it grabbed the docs from the docs folder, which is interesting that that is what it thought to do. And it fetched. Oh wow, and it grabbed a specific page using that fetch generic URL content. Nice. I mean, that's basically all I wanted to show. I think this is a really neat tool. I think that it solves a lot of problems that I've been having with getting docs into cursor's memory space, into the context, because I've just had, a lot of different, like, how do I get this into Markdown? How do I grab the content that I need? You know, there's a lot of different things. And it's not just GitHub links, technically. There is also, I wonder what happens if I point it at the doc site, right? Like, what does that do? Or does it fail out? Let's see here. That was... Okay, so it does need to be a github.com or github.io URL. For some reason, I thought that there was a generic URL thing that, you know, could look at document sites, but this makes sense. Anyhow, I think this is really cool. Yeah, so just poke around the code base a little bit. Yeah, they are using the model context protocol SDK, which definitely with like TypeScript or JavaScript seems to be the easiest way to set up an MCP server right now. They're using the SSE, the server-side event model, right? Yeah. Looks like there's potentially another way. I'm just looking at the code here. I wonder if some of the indexing is supposed to be happening behind the scenes, and that's like what's causing the server to fail out. So get tools. Okay, so in the init here, let's see here. We're setting up the URLs and stuff. Getting the repo data. What is that getting, I wonder? And then it's going to get MCP tools. I mean, I don't see anything in here that's like processing. So let's check out the get repo data. Comes from shared repo data. Here we go. Looks like there's some sort of local hosts. Support. I'm kind of looking to see here specifically if there's any like processing or jobs that like get kicked off that might be getting stuck. I don't see anything off the top of my, you know, that's obvious here. Where is this getting called from? It's not. No, it is here. In the tests. It's tested but not being used. Right. All right, so where is, that's nothing here I want. Tools. Because I'm curious about the search. Like, what is it supposed to be doing? Okay, so fetch documentation. At least it is trying to cache stuff. That's good. Yeah, so, and it's interesting that whatever they did on the website changed even since yesterday because, yeah, they used to have, oh, no, this is for the, well, that's interesting. They had mentioned that they are respecting the robots file, so it's not going to go and grab content from a URL that should not be, you know, because the site owner has disallowed robots. Okay, so there's a fetch file. I mean, I get it. Sorry, but sometimes this whole following things down this rabbit hole. Oh man, I'm getting lost here. Fetch URL content is what I want, which is this one. But there's also one in the cache. Yeah, that's not something I would do, having multiple functions exported in the same code base with the same name. Let's see here. Okay, sorry. Wait, I thought I just did that. Sorry, so it went here. Wait, and then it's, no, so this one must be the other one. This one's from the, see, this is why. Suddenly it's complicated, or yeah, so I got lost looking through the code base. And I can imagine too that like AI would have problems with this too, trying to recognize that there's multiple things with multiple functions with the same name and referencing the right one. And at the end of the day, it uses a fetch. Okay, so what does the response do? So it's either getting the text body or the JSON body. And then returning it. And that gets returned. I'm just mostly trying to see, like, at what point, I feel like at some point here, there is some processing that's happening, right? Huh, I'm not familiar with this llms.txt thing. So is this kind of like a new version of robots? Huh. So they're saying, like, here's what you can do if you want to. You have to set up your own renderer so you can render to Markdown instead of rendering to HTML. Hmm. I'll have to look more into this. This is interesting. But yeah, I have a hard time believing. I don't know. We'll see what the future of the internet brings, right? I have a hard time believing that web developers are going to be putting in extra effort to make their site more LLM compatible, save for like documentation sites and stuff like that, where it is a big bonus. But like in my example, I already have Markdown because I'm using Docusaurus. I don't know. Like, why would somebody want to have their site more robot indexable when most of the time there's some sort of incentive of, I want you to go to my website, not just get the information through an LLM. I don't know. It's interesting. I'll have to think on that. So I mean, like, they're looking for README. Curious how it came to find there. There's another docs/docs. Wait, do I have a LLM.txt like provided by Docusaurus? Sorry, let me get the right one up here. Okay, so we go back over to docs/docs. Yeah, there's none here. Interesting. But that would be where I would see that sort of thing come into use. And this can create an array of all the location branch combinations. Try. Yeah, so I can definitely do things like setting up an LLMs.txt to point the documentation to a more specific location. Where was, let's see here, it was in the example, and it was in here. So where did that original no relevant documentation found? I want to see if I can find that. I should probably quote that. Or is this, there we go. So once it has attempted to fetch the documentation, wait, this is just always happening? Sorry, I'm just trying to understand here. Like this, or does this, all right, just formatted text get, no. This is just always going to happen. So they must be thinking about adding that. But that means then when using that tool, it's always going to return that message, and then it's going to return the fallback documentation that it was able to get. Okay. That's a little leading. Anyhow, yeah, I'm going to call this here because that was the main thing that I wanted to cover right now. And I have other things I'm going to work on today, this afternoon, but I am probably going to do those offline. So mostly so I don't have to worry about hiding API keys. Anyhow, thank you all for dropping by, and yeah, until next time, happy hacking.